Ladies and gentlemen, here we are, another session at the Airfreight Pharma digital event, and the title being Essential Transport for an Essential Industry. And my goodness me, if never before, the amount of focus and recognition on our industry is here now, and it's all thanks to people like our guests. And I'd like to introduce them now coming up. And the topic that we're going to be discussing is the supply chain, the air freight industry's response to the crisis, what went well, what were the problems, and what were the lessons to be learned, and also a few other special ingredients from these four special people. So the people I'm talking about, firstly, Nathan De Valck, Head of Cargo Product and Network Development, Brussels Airport Company. Nathan, lovely to see you again. Then we've got Manu Jacobs, Managing Director, Specialty Products, United Cargo. And then we've got József Kossuth, Head of Cargo, Budapest Airport. And we've got Andy Faes, Regional Manager, Healthcare Vertical Europe for Expeditors. Mm-hmm. So thank you for joining.
Welcome.
Happy to be here.
That's it. God, that's a great opening
Nice
statement. That sets it. That's lovely. Hope you're happy that when we finish as well. Now, I don't want to embarrass anybody, but I'm just going to go through a very quick overview of your bios so that anybody listening, and hopefully there'll be many people, they'll be able to know a little bit more about you. So firstly, we'll start with you, Nathan. So Nathan heads the cargo product and route development team at Brussels Airport, and he's responsible for the business development and key account activities for airlines, forwarders and shippers, as well as further development of specializations and products. Nathan has been involved with Brew Cargo's preferred European pharmaceutical gateway, and he's also managed the CEIV Pharma Community Certification, and is co-founder and chairman of Pharma.aero. Okay, and we heard all about Pharma.aero in the early days. So Nathan, thank you very, very much indeed, sir. Then we come to Manu. Thank you. And then Manu Jacobs, currently serving as Managing Director, Specialty Products at United, and has joined United in 2016 and is based out of Belgium. So you two gentlemen know each other quite well, I would imagine. And then also, Manu also oversees United Cargo's suite of specialty products, being express, temperature control, life science and pharma related, quick pack, pet safe, Trust UA, and UA Secure. That Trust UA one, I'd love to have a chat with you one day about that one, if Manu. Also one of the founding members of United's COVID-19 Vaccine Readiness Task Force. So I'm sure that has given you an awful lot of experience. So thank you very much, Manu. Then we come to, sorry. Then we come to József, joined Budapest Airport back in 2008. And is responsible for managing the airport cargo business development, sales and marketing. And he has a mission, which is to support the development of the air cargo industry in Central Eastern Europe, and also to improve the air cargo environment for all air cargo business partners. I like this one, what you've put in here, József. He works with a passion to increase the regional cargo hub role of Budapest. Also spent his entire career in the aviation industry, and is a board member of Association of Logistics Service Centres in Hungary, and the head of aviation working group of the Freight Forwarding Association. So thank you so much, József.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. And then last but by no means least, we've got Andy Faes. Andy assumed his current position back in 2014 with Expeditors and also in Brussels. Started his logistics career back in 1999 with American Airlines in various commercial roles, Belgium, Netherlands and Luxembourg. And lucky him, he moved to London in 2007 to join their cargo division and becoming chairman of American Airlines Cargo Sales Advisory Board. And in 2009, Andy set up the AA Cargo Temperature Control Services, EPXTC, for the region. So well done, sir. And I understand that also reaped the rewards of training 3,000 colleagues towards GDP compliance. So fair play to you for increasing that population of specialists.
Yep, it was early days back then, but no, it was a very interesting journey to go through. Absolutely.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, guys, listen, brilliant, right? Great experience between you all. Now, what I'd like to start with, and feel free, anyone can jump in, and then we'll intermingle and intermix as necessary. But firstly, I mean, this pandemic has done so much bad, but it's also done so much good, and I think the session that we got today is, and it warrants talking about successes, learnings, and benefits that we're going to be able to take forward. So please, in any order, whoever wants to come first, if you can just let me know, what do you think have been the standout positives related to the experiences that we've all had, whether it be forced upon us or by intent, over this last 18 months?
Yeah, if I can start it off, Chris, I think just to open the floor a little bit, I think what went extremely well this time is the reactiveness of the air freight industry. I think the need was there, and it really reacted in a very agile way. I think both the airports, the airline industry, the freight forwarders, ground handlers all got together, faced up to the challenge successfully. I think there was a big scares in the beginning, saying 8,000 cargo planes needed, etc. But I think we all kept our cool. A lot of COVAX groups, working groups set up everywhere from all the players. And I think there was a great alignment. And I think that's a little bit reaping the rewards of being an industry that's, especially around healthcare, of an open communication, an agile industry, flexible industry. We know all of each other well. It's a small world.
Yeah.
So I think just from my side, I think it was a really good reaction to the balance, whatever we were facing.
Okay, brilliant. And I think what you started off saying there, some of the proposals or the forecasts or the worst case scenarios that were coming out, I mean, they were unbelievable. It must be, in some ways, it must be a little embarrassing, or at least put a smile on the faces of some of the people who came up with the calculations and what would happen. And at the end of the day, things have come through very, very well.
Chris, if I may elaborate on this, because you mentioned worst case scenarios. Now, from the airliners' point of view, the worst case scenario for us was based upon 9/11. That was, let's say, the worst thing that could ever happen to an airline. And then, of course, let's say this hit us, and I mean, the world just came to an end for us. And I mean, immediately, let's say the airlines, we went into survival mode. I mean, and immediately we had to become, let's say, a very flexible and scalable organization. What you said as well, Andy, with the immediate focus, let's say, on cutting costs. And of course, the airline is asset heavy, and so we had to, no choice. I mean, and we had to learn to cope with unpredictability. Still today, we don't know, let's say, what the new normal is. And then the airline, I mean, everything stopped. So basically, we had to build, or call it rebuild, a skeleton schedule from nothing. And we immediately launched the so-called freight-only flights, just trying to keep, let's say, supply chain in the air. And distancing, I mean, we were not prepared for distancing, but that also distancing is one of the things, let's say, if we look back, that went well.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. 100% right. And what you're saying there about, having 9/11 as worst case scenarios, one of the things that has made every company everywhere, but especially in ours, because we've got a history of responding to crisis and incredible challenges, but it brought to light, in my opinion, a much more realistic approach to business, and not just focusing on challenging budgets, but looking at what would be the worst case scenario or realistic risk, and then being able to deal with it rather than assuming that everything was going to be okay and then have to step back and try and respond or react. And somebody on one of the sessions, they gave us a statement. They said that you can't control the events, but you can control the reactions. And I think, we've come out of that in such wonderful light. It's been brilliant. So thank you very much, Manu.
And I'll toss the ball to Nathan as well. I think if you look at Brussels Airport, what they've done. I mean, we've at Expeditors, we've been part of the Pharma.aero since the startup, and you see that there as well. And it was a base that was created for these types of situations. There was immediately surveys that went out from Brussels Airport. There was a brew crew label that was established. So I think the reactiveness of the airports was really important in this one as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes, absolutely. I think to add on to what Andy just said and Manu, it proved that the companies that were already involved in a collaboration structure, such as cargo communities collaboration, but also on a global scale like Pharma.io, we were ready. We could immediately activate the whole collaboration setup. And well, the companies that were not yet involved in these type of structures, it took them a bit longer to react. So from a community perspective, the value was immediately proven. But also on an airport scale, we heard Manu explain the type of rescaling and upscaling he had to do in his schedule. It also had a big impact on the cargo operations. Not only were we hit on the passenger side, but also on the cargo side, we had to reinvent some of the allocation of airplanes on the cargo aprons. We saw a huge increase in the integrated activity when it comes to e-commerce growth, of course, but also on the freighter side. Both freighter operators and passenger airline operators jumped into this hole. There was a big drop in belly capacity. And as a result of that, we've seen a huge increase in number of flights and volumes at airports. And I think most airports handled it well, and we've been showcased to society in general what added value air cargo brings when it comes to quickly transporting life-saving materials, PPE, vaccines, you name it.
Yeah, and long may it stay, Nathan. Now, József, one of the things, and just building on what Nathan said there, I've felt for a long time that the next big change or the next big influencer or positive disruptor would be the airports themselves with their ecosystem and their communities. And if the airports decide that moving forward now, they want to make a much more focused approach on who actually operates from the airport, what other associated business can be attracted to work close to that airport, and how that airport community or ecosystem can actually support itself for the good and the betterment moving forward. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I hope first that my connection and my voice is good because I'm logging in from a regional logistic conference from Slovakia, Bratislava recently. I would react a bit to the questions. Not all the airports has to handle extra cargo volumes recently. So we are. So we have 40% growth rate this year, and you have nice numbers, but not all of the airports are facing this challenge. Regarding last year and the positive and negative cases and effects from 2020 due to the COVID virus, I would say collaboration is definitely. We had to react very quick, very fast to the reaction to the market challenges, and this how would I say supported the collaboration, because companies are usually want to collaborate, but in 2020 from one day to the other they had to. There was no other choice. If you wanted to run an airport, you had to talk to the handlers, to the authorities, to the forwarders, everybody. Maybe just tonight, maybe there was, I had calls, I had 70, 80 phone calls in the first day just to talk to the ministries, travel restrictions, crew protection, something. So definitely this is something which helped the collaboration. So I guess it escalated a bit. Other side, as Chris, you mentioned, there is always this buzzwords and there is an intention for the collaboration, but every collaboration and cooperation needs a leader. So you need a leader, you need a catalyst, you need a host to run this. If you are like Brussels Airport, also they are doing this excellent. So it's like what they do, that they took the lead. This is something what we do in our region, in our cargo community. You have to lead this, you have to support your stakeholders, and then they follow you.
Yeah, and all stakeholders and everybody. I mean, again, collaboration, beautiful buzzword, and it's like teamwork and all the words everybody uses when they're on a panel like this or somebody asks them a question. But then as you walk out the door, you say to yourself, if only the revenues and the costs are in the right direction, then we'll be okay. But what you've just said there now, if everybody really tried to do something positively now with this collaboration and data sharing, I mean, it's only for the good of everybody, isn't it?
Collaboration is something easy to say, difficult to make.
Yep. It's a bit like being in a schoolyard when all the rest of the kids say, "Here, do you want one of my sweets?" You say, "Yeah, I'll have all of these." And then when they say, "Well, can we have one of yours?" You're like, "Oh, hold on."
Yeah, and also take into account, Chris, you've worked in industry as well. I mean, the ground handlers. There was also a bit of a risk area at one point because all of a sudden all the passenger flights almost came to a grinding halt. So obviously there the ground handlers, they play an enormous role in this. Yeah, I mean, if you look at temperature control as well, I think 60% of all the deviations happen on the tarmac. So the role that they have is crucial in this. And all of a sudden they were left with a lot less work to be done. So for those companies as well, I think there, the airport also plays a role of trying to amend the pieces and try to keep everything together and rolling, because we saw that in the chain, all of those actors had to still play their roles. If one, you're only as strong as your weakest link, I guess. So if one in the chain drops, then we have a problem on our hands.
But that also gives an opportunity again for another positive disruptor, in as much as, if you look at it, you've got an airline has an agreement with an airport, you've got an airline has an agreement with a forwarder, and you've got an airline has an agreement with a GHA. But the forwarder and the GHA, who are probably two of the most important handovers of the baton, they don't actually have an agreement themselves. And then you've got all the other complexities that are added on, which actually makes that probably one of the most difficult interfaces.
Yeah, we have quality agreements as forwarders. We typically have quality agreements with the airlines, and we make sure through their service provider agreements that they have agreements with the ground handlers, and that's how the baton is passed on, as you say, Chris. But because it's really important, that everyone in the chain speaks the same language.
But what we do see is that the airport really has a vital role to play in optimizing that collaboration. As you say, Chris, it's a buzzword, but it's especially a lot of hard work. It's easy to say, it's much harder to make it work. Identifying that weak link and then setting up an action plan to remediate it. It very often it doesn't happen by itself, so that weak entity needs to be challenged, and there the airport operator and the community entity that drives the whole momentum within that cargo ecosystem really has a role to play. If you do not have that in place yet, and you only start thinking about it when you are confronted with types of problems like COVID lockdowns, well, then you have an issue. So that catalyst role an airport can play in managing that whole supply chain has really proven its worth.
It's not rocket science, but in healthcare the devil is in the detail. And Nathan and myself, we went through it live. It's down to the processes sometimes, in these nitty-gritty things. Where do the dollies pick up first? Where they pick up last? It's all down to these small processes that makes a success.
Yeah, 100%. And József, the conference that you're at or that you're attending at the moment, one of the panels you're going to go on has got a relevant subject matter, hasn't it?
Yes, definitely. I had two panels. The one yesterday together with freight forwarders and also Tiaka, our board member, and some other gentlemen. And we were talking about the actual challenges and also the future of the air freight and the importance of the air freight for the people. That's not an air freight conference. That's a regional logistic conference in Bratislava, Slovakia, for I don't know 6-7 countries. It is really good to be here after a long time, a personal event, and you have to explain this most probably not to the logistic companies and the freight forwarders why the air freight is important for us, but you have to explain this to people. So this is the air freight is supplying and serving the society. It brought your vaccines. It is supplying the economy. So it has a crucial role. And you said that you asked what are the advantages of the COVID. I wouldn't say advantage. Let's use obviously a better word, some positive effects of the COVID, that the importance of the air freight is getting more obvious. This is something what I feel recently.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, yeah, that's music to my ears actually. And Joseph, I visited Budapest Airport as well now 1 or 2 years ago, I guess before COVID, when the new investments were made on temperature control, etc. It used to be, you know, although Brussels Airport was like a pilot in getting this community approach going, I'm happy to see worldwide actually that a lot of airports have jumped on this and have started to do the same thing. And eventually, you know, we're all hoping that it'll become a standard worldwide. It will only be better for the patients at the end of the line.
100%, and I think it's encouraging the way airports now. You know, it's a little bit like whenever you're driving, you see one town twinned with another town. But now to see airports interfacing, changing, getting best demonstrated practices, I think that's a wonderful initiative.
Yep.
Manu.
Yeah,
Manu,
no,
sorry, Manu. I was just going to ask you. Obviously, as a well-known and reputed carrier, one of the things that has happened, which has happened to everybody, is that there's been a bit of a drain of that middle tier of experience and personnel, whether it be because of, you know, furlough, layoffs, early retirements, whatever. Now that's a huge warning sign to our industry, isn't it? I mean, how are you addressing that?
Well, Chris, you're absolutely right, and I think as an industry, we've not seen the worst yet. It is ongoing. I mean, if we look around us, I mean, in the airline, we had to let go of thousands and thousands of colleagues because of the financial situation. But same thing happens, let's say, with ground handlers, with staffing at airports. I mean, change of opening hours, less flights, congestion. I mean, it's all accumulating. I mean, not enough truck drivers. And so basically, it is an industry problem. I think what we need to do as an industry is, first of all, let's say, make the job more attractive, promote, let's say, our industry, and also become, let's say, better and faster and more efficient in hiring staff, because that's another thing. Whether you work for an airline or you work for a ground handler or a freight forwarder, I mean, you come in, let's say, new from university, and you have to go through training. I mean, it takes a while, let's say, before people are trained on the processes, before they have their specialism. That just takes too long. So we have to, I mean, as an industry, show how attractive our industry can be and make sure, let's say, that we have a process more efficient, faster to attract people.
Yeah. I was, and even sharing certain common, which, you know, if you spoke to somebody in a university or in a classroom, you know, in their last years at school, one of the logical things I think they would all say was that if you get a security clearance on one airport, it should be valid on all the rest of the airports. Why would you have to go through that again? So there's lots of things that we could do that could speed up the process. But
I think, Chris, sorry for interrupting, but just to tag on to what Manu was saying, I think IATA played a good role there as well in trying to make the awareness higher on what the air freight industry is doing, because people are used to having their iPhones or their whatever, their vegetables at the stores at certain points or whatever. Same as with the healthcare industry. Yeah, you go to the pharmacy, you never even think about how it actually got to the pharmacy and what the temperature was, etc. I'm happy to see that now. My wife, for example, knows what I'm doing after this COVID crisis, because it's true, Chris. I think it's the first time that I saw on the BBC that we're talking about healthcare logistics, etc., etc. So it's actually good that this comes into the media. Yeah.
I think 100%. And what it needs to do now is it needs to continue with the momentum and have a different PR and marketing approach, so that more people start to be aware and more people at grassroots level start to be aware, and then they start looking at some of the problems that the whole industries have got worldwide.
Yeah, and we're part of a greater good, Chris. That's actually the message.
Exactly. Yeah, how everybody can care together and they care more, which is excellent. Now, gents, from an airport perspective, one of the things that, and I've been traveling more than I thought I would just recently, but wherever I'm going, I'm seeing three things that I'm thinking, my goodness me, how is this going to be optimized or improved? So one is the amount of equipment that's laying redundant at the airports. Another one is the condition and the way the equipment is being left at the airports. And then the third one is the numbers of people that are available when you look out the window or when you're on the coach from the stands to the terminal. Now, do you think this is the time now to really look at pooling, which has been successful in some areas, but not others. But not just pooling of equipment, but pooling of multi-skilled, high-level SME employees, so that they could be cherry-picked and they could be used when they're available, with the understanding that that would give an opportunity for the remuneration package to change because of their flexibility and their understanding of supply chain, which I mean, they could do 6 to 8 hours on a ramp. They could do 3 to 4 hours doing administrative support. They could do another shift then maybe in the cargo warehouse, so that they become totally flexible and higher value, which would put more, shall we say, self-pride and recognition into a career passport that would be good for them. József, Nathan, what do you think of that?
Nathan first.
Yeah, thanks, József. I can share some examples, Chris. You're actually making a very valid point there. It's all about optimizing resources, so not just people, equipment as well. There's been some best practices we implemented also at Brussels Airport, and it usually starts with specialized equipment where it's more challenging for handling agent to do the investment and get a decent return on investment. And then we look at typically de-icing equipment, pharma dollies, busing. So probably a little bit outside of their core activities when it comes to handling equipment, so heavy duty scissors lift for freighters, or even unmotorized dollies. Also there we're doing some investigations whether pooling makes sense, because you can have very strong synergy effects if for example you have an integrator activity at night and a full freighter activity during the day, where instead of doubling the number of equipment, a pool of equipment could generate a lot of value for everybody involved and reduce the space it takes, simply because space is very scarce at an airport. Secondly, when it comes to people, totally agree. It makes sense to set up pools of experts or even low-skilled people, because typically all the different operators are faced with the same peak and seasonality patterns at the airport, and it's a challenge to find good people. So pooled initiatives on pooling of equipment and personnel definitely do make sense, and it's probably the airport again there that is best placed to start the initiative and to bring everybody together around the table.
Yeah. Okay, József.
In cargo, we are in an interesting situation. So we are 35% above the pre-COVID level in volumes, and this facility, which was handed over last year, it was a brand new cargo center, Wood Cargo City, 32,000 square meter handling facility, new apron. It is full. So at Budapest Airport, you cannot talk about, how would I say, not used cargo equipment and stuff. So the cargo is really is booming. The handlers, they made what you said. So last year they tried to reallocate people from the passenger handling to the cargo operation. What you can, there are certain tasks. So what I see now that this is the manpower issue is more and more getting an issue. The manpower is getting more and more an issue in Central Eastern Europe as well. And all the companies try to keep their stuff. So however you can, because everybody knows that this will recover for the passenger traffic. Recently, Budapest Airport is around 50%. So the passenger traffic compared to the pre-COVID level, and still fortunately it is missing for the handlers, and they try to make actions. Yes, but I would say that in general, what I heard from Manu as well, that we have to and we have to advertise air cargo and logistics amongst the young people. Also, universities, middle schools, come to the logistics, make it fancy, make it attractive, and also that's not only for the air cargo. So also in Hungary, there are plenty of new warehouses just growing around the airport, even not within our territory, which need more and more manpower, forklift drivers, warehouse operations. It is not an easy issue. So you have to automate the procedures, you have to digitize what you can, you have to increase the efficiency, although you will face big manpower issues everywhere.
Yeah, 100%. Manu, what we're talking about there, replacing experienced people in that middle tier. Are you looking or addressing training in a different way now than the legacy or traditional training? And I don't mean now from classroom to online. What I'm alluding to is, if you take the best training course any of you have been on, and if you were to put a date 3 months in advance and a blank piece of paper at that 3 months in advance and try and write down everything you could remember on the training course, you probably forgot 60% of it. So a question would be, somebody who's writing a check, they want to see a return on investment. So things have to be done differently, especially if 60 to 70% is going to be forgotten, which would then suggest, well, why was it given in the first place? So the real heavy impact and the high effect on the business, that's where it needs to focus. And I think it needs to be rebalanced so that it's not so much classroom or online, but much more on the floor, and much more practical.
Correct, Chris. It is difficult. I think it's going to remain difficult. I mean, as an airline, we're heavily regulated. We need to demonstrate, let's say, that we give training sessions on mandatory topics within a specific job. We need to keep the records. It's recurrent training. We need to check, let's say, that even our partners, our providers, go through, let's say, our training as well. And that is all kind of regulated. Obviously, since many years, we're trying, let's say, to modernize and using new technology, webinars, stuff like that. But still, I mean, it is noted in each and everybody's person's records. I mean, I think it probably takes more than a year before, let's say, you have run all the trainings you were assigned to. I'm not sure. I think this is, again, an industry-wide issue. I'm not sure, let's say, how we can even make it more efficient, or how we can potentially reduce training or make it more, let's say, flexible in a way. It is a struggle.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking that question is because, and it's no disrespect to trainers or training companies or training materials, but in the main, an awful lot of it, and what you've just said there, Manu, is tick box exercising because of accreditation or IOSA, ISARPs, or whatever it is. And you're not really you're not really verifying an individual's retention of knowledge and practice of knowledge. It's more of a memory test. So whether you have a formal test at the end of your 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, or whether you have trainers who say, if there's a collective answer to most of my questions, you all get your certificates. What I think we have to do now to bring back more pride and more value onto being part of this industry is the level of competence. And it must be tough. And it has to be done differently now, so that once people come in, they realize how good it is. And it's a great industry, because where else can anybody do something, and then it can be replicated wherever an aircraft lands, and you can travel around the world and do that job. So I just think we really now need to do something a lot different. And I'm not talking about going on to a TikTok type mentality where everything's done in 3 minutes or, done like that, but a nice balance. But it must be more practical. And even with the regulatory training, lots of the course criteria is just covering the titles that are required under those regulatory guidelines. But the retention of knowledge is something that I think now needs to be focused on.
Agreed, Chris.
I think, Chris, when we listen to the participants of some of the community trainings we organize within Air Cargo Belgium here at the Brussels Airport Cargo Community, we hear that next to these very technical trainings, where of course you need to get some technical background and expertise, there's also the element of discussion and best practice sharing. So when this again speaks for multi-company trainings organized by communities, and having a mix of classroom, but also going on site, visiting one of the warehouses or going on airside, having a live a demo of something, and potentially even talking about it and sharing ideas. Very often we hear that people retain a lot more knowledge if they've looked at the subject from different angles, and that definitely can play a role. It may mean that the length of the training goes up a little bit, but in the end it's much more efficient if you organize it that way.
Yeah, and also as far as healthcare industry goes, Chris, I tend to disagree a little bit with you, because training is a very important part of it. There's also recurrent training that's done just to make sure things are kept live and up to date. So there's a lot of due diligence that's done in order to kind of what you described not to happen. Yeah, the complacency and things like that. There's also a reason why Expeditors, for example, to touch upon that, decided then it's been always our culture not to furlough any people when things get tough, but to retain our people. Yeah, and we've done that again during this crisis. We retained all our personnel, and there's a reason for it. Chris, is kind of what you explained already. It takes a lot of effort to train people to a certain degree, and it's a big loss if you lose those people.
Yeah, and I understand the challenge there, Andy. What I was actually referring to, things where it's specialist, which obviously pharma is, and now perishable is starting to follow, and some of the other verticals are following. Every company seems to invest in those particular people, so they become SMEs in that particular area. Mm-hmm. I'm actually talking about the general, the mass, the population. They don't get the level of competence and retention verification that I think is necessary, which would also give a good solid succession catalyst then for people to move into those specialist areas, because they'd see a natural progression and challenge to it.
Yeah,
so,
but at Expeditors, we have a very strong training culture. For example, I mean, there's 52 hours of training that we have to do per year. And that's really to incentivize people to take trainings, to grow within the company. That's kind of how we went about it.
And a genuine culture is something that is nice to see. And I've done, I can't remember now how many audits all over the world, whether it be airline, handling agent or forwarder with regards to the ULD handling. But you see an awful lot administrative compliance. But when you actually look at it in practice, that's where I think now, we've got an opportunity to really focus. And an airport who takes oversight of those particular standards or code of conduct or code of practice, I think that's where we'll start to really move forward.
And Chris, I think we learned as an airline, let's say, that our frontline colleagues, whether let's say that's at the ticketing desk, in the warehouse, whether that's a truck driver, let's say all these frontline employees are basically the most important people, and they were underestimated by the industry. These people on the floor, they make sure, let's say, that air freight still exists. Without them, no air freight. And that was, let's say, something we probably realized too late, but we realized. Yeah, no, I think I definitely agree with that. And it's the score on the floor that puts the results on the table. Mm-hmm. So 100%. Now, gents, anybody want to add something, from either an experience perspective or something that you think is a standout area of, the successes or the challenges that are going to come with regards to pharma? Because one of the things that I've spoken to other panelists about is to do with, security is a big issue, counterfeit, all these areas, making people appreciate that it's not just a therapeutic, or it's not just a vaccine, but some of these particular fancy names and numbers and references, they actually mean, cancer, they mean all these different, I would say opportunities of hope that are available. And when everybody appreciates how important that is to a human being and to an individual, that's also part of that awareness and culture to make them handle it in a much more effective way. Yeah, that's a good thing you bring up, Chris, because and it's worth mentioning because, I mean, if you look at our customers now, there's been so much talk about vaccines, et cetera, et cetera. There's actually two things, that I've learned as well. Is first one, you cannot drink the vaccine, meaning that a lot of the medical devices had to move forward in the same fashion. Yeah, so there's a PPEs, there's a mouth mouse, there's a syringes, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. All of them with the same goal at hand. So yeah, I think it's important. Another thing that was also important, I think, that we are working together with some of our customers that are not in the COVID-19 arena, but they develop products for diabetes or high blood pressure or cancer drugs. All of a sudden, Chris, that wasn't in the in the limelight. That wasn't in the focus anymore. So there's patients waiting on their medication. My son as well, he's 12 years old. He told me the new PlayStation is out. It's really important that gets moving. It's really important the new iPhones come onto the market. When all of a sudden you're stuck with 10 or 20% of air freight left. Yeah. How do you prioritize, right? So
that was also, I think, a big challenge in the industry to try and make sure we do the right thing.
Yeah, 100%, 100%, and learn from some of the other issues that are now coming to the fore with different modes of transportation, so that we don't make the same mistakes.
If you allow me, Chris, one of the other elements we do here, coming back very often, is specifically to get more transparency in the supply chain. There's a lot of companies involved in handling any type of goods, and particularly the pharmaceutical life science shipments are very sensitive, very specialized handling, and very regulated. So from a security, from a safety and product point of view, getting it to the patient, there's a lot of need and a big need for quick availability of data in case something goes wrong, or even if it goes well, which in most of the cases happens, to validate the go-to-market, the release to market. And there we have seen that there's every individual company is making the same requests, asking for the same data, and data that often sits in silos, locked away within the individual participants in the supply chain. So there is a huge need and also a huge potential for data sharing, and we all talk about it. By now, most people know, I hope at least, that the technology does exist. But we feel, again, as an airport, managing that community, that it's a lot of hard work to walk that talk, to implement data sharing platforms, and to convince companies to work together, even with their competitors, because the benefits will be there for everybody in the long run if we start sharing data, so that digital twin models can be set up, so that through tracking and proactive interaction can happen when even before things go wrong. So that's definitely an area that that will need a lot more attention in the years to come.
Yeah, no, 100%, Nathan. Now, gents, just as we come to the end of this session, and thank you so much for your time and your input, I've got a question for you. Okay, so whoever wants to answer first, please feel free. Now, that question is, what would you like to see happen within the supply chain teamwork and collaboration platform if you had that magic wand and you could say, right, this is a must and this is going to make a difference moving forward? And then what we'll do is, touch wood, please God, next year when we have a face-to-face, we'll be able to refer to it and see how accurate those statements were. So anybody, whoever wants to go first, feel free.
Chris, well, I think Nathan just said it to me. To me, it would be about making sure that every shipment has like full visibility live on the web. And not just, let's say, with the one party that is handling that shipment at that moment, but throughout, let's say, the entire supply chain. And so basically, you create transparency and visibility. You see basically that the truck from the forwarder left the factory, the distribution center of the shipper is on its way. You can see, let's say, that as agreed, the estimated arrival is going to be 6 p.m. Tonight, and then it continues, and it will not stop, let's say, when the airline hands over the shipment at destination. No, it continues, because the consignee picks up the shipment. I mean, the shipper can see that the truck departed and has agreed that the estimated arrival will be whatever tomorrow morning, and it would not even stop there. I mean, then let's say the shipper has to validate and put remarks in. I don't know how they would do it. So basically everybody can see that all the checks were done and that the shipment was received in good order, in good conditions, potentially with temperature stamps or what have you. That would be my dream.
Yeah, and what a shame it's not being done now, because the capability's there.
Yeah.
And it's just the desire and the investment in, I think, not even the investment as a financial thing. It's able to be done. Okay, thanks, Manu. Next, who wants to go next?
No, I'll say, I think Manu and Nathan said it perfectly. I think we've been in this game long enough. I think all of us on this call get it. And it's true. It comes down to communication. It comes down to flexibility as well, of the airlines, of the all the players actually. So the people on this call, they're all very flexible. Know when things need to be done. They need to act accordingly, and that's just moving forward, I think that's going to be the main driver. Yeah, flexibility and communication from my side.
Yeah, and making sure that we follow through now, because it's easy when fear pushes us into being collaborative, and then when the fear drops away, then everything else seems to dilute as well. But we must do this. So thanks very much, Andy.
I want to add on that, Chris. You make a good point. It's following through. It's about implementing the intentions we have. And delivering on results. And what we see is when these innovation projects deliver results, it's usually when there's the right mentality around the table. Very often it's not about knowing upfront what is going to happen, but to have that mentality with all participants. Hey, let's at least try to do something.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's not going to be perfect, but take a first step. Implement something. It's really we adopted this mentality from the startup companies. Fail fast, test something. If it works, explore it a bit deeper. If it fails, move to the next idea. But at least test it, implement things instead of continuously discussing and not getting anything into action. So that really makes a big difference. So if more companies would be willing to have to approach innovation and collaboration with that type of mindset, it would already make a big difference.
All parties, including the shipper, Chris.
Everybody.
Absolutely. The community.
Upstream, downstream, it's factory to factory. And, if we don't do it, then everybody has seen the disruptors that can come into the industry because we're not able to deal with it from one end to the other completely. And that's going to be such a shame. So
and that's what I've seen as well. The shippers actually, they see that they actually contribute to this. Yeah. So they happily jump on all the workshops, etc. So it's
big time. Yeah. And that's what it's all about. All of us being enablers and supporters rather than being blockers and lemmings. So
reacting a bit to Andy's comment. What we can, if we talk about the achievement or promises by next year, usually I try to focus on things what we can do, what we can provide. So not expecting things from other. The CIV community, CIV Pharma, you have the CIV Pharma community approach. The implementation is ongoing in Hungary. So next year we are ready. So both handling companies at the airports will be certified and several freight forwarders and truckers. It was not easy to achieve this. We started this last year in the mid of the COVID, you can imagine.
Yeah.
And but we involved the shippers, and that's a good point. I went to the Hungarian Pharma Association. I involved them from the very beginning. I talked to them. I explained the values of the whole story for them, and they are in. And then I don't let this go just going. I will go back when the product is ready, and I will help to sell our cargo community members their product to the shippers. So that's the and we want to go a bit referring to Nathan. We would like to implement a cloud-based cargo community system by end of next year for data sharing, ERV bill, and all the other functions at Budapest Airport. So that's my promise for next year.
My God, yeah! What a note to finish on, eh? If ever we could get rid of paper, wouldn't that be fantastic?
Yeah.
Hey, we
have to protect our world. We have only one Earth and one world to protect and live here.
Yeah, but that's the one thing that bugs me. All the years I've been in this industry, and we can't do what other industries do. So, looking at the likes of you guys, hopefully one day. And until that one day comes, listen, thanks very much. It's because of you guys that the global reputation of supply chain and cargo has been enhanced. Good luck. Keep doing what you're doing, and thank you so much for sharing your time with us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for the invitation, Chris.